Welcome to the Living Healthy Podcast, where you can improve your quality of life by making solid and informed decisions. I'm your host, Eddie Randall. Thank you for tuning in to Season 2, Episode 13 of the Living Healthy Podcast. The podcast is running strong as I continue to reach more listeners in the United States, Europe, and around the world. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for your support. Please feel free to check out the latest merchandise at the Living Healthy Podcast store. The link is in the description of the podcast. Everyone wants to give their children the best. As parents prepare to bring their children into the world, they've rearranged their lives to welcome, nurture, and love their children. Everyone hopes that their child can become a rocket scientist, physician, or lawyer. If they become those things, that's great. If they don't become those things, that is also great. As long as you provide the tools they need, you've done the best that you can. No matter what tools you provide, the most important is love. Tonight, I will be discussing the many things we can do as parents to help strengthen our children's intellect, their way of thinking, and their problem-solving skills. I will be covering learning in the womb, learning during your child's developmental ages, learning during the preteen and teenage years, and I'll even touch on homeschooling. One thing that I wanted to mention in particular regarding children is that if you learn anything, whether it's your ABCs or how to ride a bike, your brain will build new synapses and produce neurons and strengthen current neurological connections. So I will talk about what we can all do to help to make our children smarter. Tonight's podcast is entitled Effective Ways to Bolster Your Child's Intelligence. Now, I can't talk about intelligence and children without at least acknowledging Swiss psychologist Jean Piaget. He developed the theory and stages of cognitive development. His premise was that intelligence develops as children grow. He believed that children don't just acquire knowledge, but they develop a mental model of the real world. This is in stark contrast to a belief that early philosophers had. I can't remember exactly who it was. I think it was either Plato or Socrates who had believed that when we're in the womb, we have all knowledge of the world, and that the stress of childbirth and coming into the world is so strenuous on the mind that we forget the knowledge and we have to relearn it. For those who are philosophy majors or into philosophy, please let me know if I'm wrong. I learned about it, I just don't remember who said it. Regardless, it's obvious that all children are born with gifts, and as parents, it's up to us to do the best that we can to help nourish our children and help them unlock their gifts. 3 areas of focus. There are 3 areas that I wanted to touch on that are part of intellect, which are reasoning, thinking, and problem-solving skills. Some kids come from very smart parents and thus turn out as such. Others are just born with a knack to pick up on things and are blessed with intellect. It's important for a child to have strong intellect and to be objective on matters and come to a reasonable understanding. I'm not saying to overburden a child with adult concepts that they cannot truly grasp nor understand. There are levels of complexity that a child's mind can understand, just as they learn right from wrong from their parents curbing their behavior. On the simplest levels, it's important for children to think objectively and to develop rational reasoning. This is a tremendous quality that they can build on during their younger years and take into adulthood. And it will allow them to become functioning, productive adults that can expect reasonable outcomes in life. Now back to the objective part of intellect. When I was growing up, Saturday morning cartoons were very popular and they were a huge part of my life. For some reason, it seemed to rain a lot on Saturday mornings, but I would be inside anyway for the cartoons. I'd get on the couch with my blanket and a bowl of cereal and enjoy myself. I say that to say this. One of the cartoons, I think it was Woody Woodpecker, I'm not quite sure, He was with a wolf, and I think they stole a bag of food from someone. They got to where they could eat it, and the wolf started taking out the food and said, 1 for you, 1 for me. 2 for you, 1, 2 for me. 3 for you, 1, 2, 3 for me. And so on. He was taking advantage of Woody and taking the majority of the food. Even though that was a cartoon, it was a concept that children could laugh about because it's on a level that children could understand. And 99% of children who are guided by their inherent moral compass along with scrupulous parenting will be able to understand that this is wrong. It's funny to watch on a cartoon, but they would not want to do this in real life. The majority of children are open, honest, curious, and forgiving. Sometimes children are smarter than what we give them credit for, and they do think about things objectively. The most objective example I can give regarding a child is this. Most kids at a young age don't really recognize or understand skin color. They see it, but they don't ponder on it. Instead of skin color, they see another kid. They see a potential friend and a potential playmate. It's only when, for some reason, someone makes a young child aware of the difference that it will now be on their mind. In regard to intellect and reasoning on the simplest level, a child will reason and conclude that candy, cake, and ice cream taste great. They'll also understand the reasoning that, in comparison to broccoli and spinach, that broccoli and spinach taste bad. A small child does not recognize sweets as an occasional treat, nor should they. At a very young age, he or she knows that it tastes great and that they want more of it. This is normal and typical of the reasoning of a young child. It's an adult's job to lay ground rules and to associate sweets as an occasional reward for accomplishment or to be associated with a particular holiday like Christmas or Halloween. A child will be able to develop and improve on their own reasoning a little at a time. Children start to learn shapes, colors, and textures from 18 months to 2 years old. Time can differ within that age range. From the ages of 2 years old to 6, this is considered the most critical time for cognitive development and reasoning. These are some of the years when children will be the most impressionable. On Edutopia, the George Lucas Educational Foundation website, there's an article by Associate Professor of Education Rishi Sharam. He published an article in June of 2020 called Why Ages 2 through 7 Matter So Much for Brain Development. He states that 2-year-olds have twice as many synapses than adults, as this allows the brain to develop faster than at any other time in that child's life. In regard to intellect and thinking, at the age of 3, children begin to understand the difference between being afraid, upset, and happy. Additionally, at this age, children will begin to use sentences stringing 3 to 4 words together. They may still be a bit selfish, but will take great strides and feel more inclined to work in groups and share with others. They will feel more independent and believe that everyone knows what they know. As an example, if your child is watching their favorite cartoon and you ask a question about a character, your child would tend to assume that you should know that character's name and why that character does what they do. At this age, they're beginning to think and analyze on the cutest and simplest levels. At this time, it's vital to encourage them to share their ideas and opinions. Next is intellect involving problem-solving skills. Even toddlers problem solve as they react with the world around them. You can ask your 1 or 2-year-old simple questions that begin with why, how, where, and if. They will take what they know and what they think to determine an outcome. This can involve toys, memory games, coloring, and safe objects around the home. At the ages of 5 to 6, this is when children would be engaged in more practical and sophisticated problem solving. It's important to encourage children to identify, brainstorm, analyze, and solve. You can ask your 5-year-old how many different ways can he come home from school, or while driving down the road or walking through a store, to name everything that they see that is blue. Additionally, you can ask them to spot words on signs or buildings or buses that contain a particular letter and ask them if they can say or spell that word. This may sound cheesy, but this will encourage curiosity and learning in your child. Curiosity and learning are vital in developing problem-solving skills. Most children love to play with blocks. Early on, toddlers will be putting them in their mouths and exploring them. By 3 years old, they will be building small rows or small stacks. By age 5, they will be erecting bigger structures. At this age, you can ask your child to organize their building blocks and see how they organize them. They may arrange them by color, size, or shape. You can then ask them why they chose a particular arrangement and get their response. This practice will build simple problem-solving skills. I'm going to list a few example questions that you can ask your 5-year-old to get those neurons firing. How do you think your battery-operated robot, race car, or doll works? If you could be an animal in the jungle or forest, what would you be and why? If you could do one nice thing for children all over the world, what would it be? What musical instrument would you play? What's your favorite dinosaur? How do you show someone that you love them? If you could have a secret hideout, where would it be and what would you put in it? These are all great questions to have them fall back on to explore what they know, so that they can better understand the concept of the world that they live in and then come to a conclusion. I will get into particular activities and materials to use by age group shortly in the podcast. I just wanted to touch on 3 areas involving intellect, which are reasoning, thinking, and problem solving. Increasing intelligence in the womb. It's been a common practice for the last few decades to have expectant mothers play classical music during their pregnancy. During the second trimester, around the 23rd or 24th week, the baby can begin to hear. Some hope to turn their children into the next Beethoven or Chopin. Realistically, most parents have expected to simply try this in hopes to make their child smarter, given the research behind the Mozart effect. The Mozart effect proved that listening to Mozart's classical music stimulated parts of the brain that were involved in spatial reasoning. Spatial reasoning is vital as it allows individuals to analyze a problem or situation in second or third dimension and apply an action or solution in real-world application. A positive example is this. Everyone knows someone who can put together something with a complex number of parts, and he or she would not need to look at the directions even once. Strong spatial reasoning is ideal for baseball players, football players, engineers, and surgeons, to name a few. A negative example would be those who can't drive. As an example, you know when a person turns the corner, but they have to get into the lane next to them and swing wide, making it dangerous for cars in other lanes. Despite the turning radius of cars becoming smaller and smaller to make driving easier, some people still can't grasp the concept of simply turning the steering wheel. Insurance companies love those types of drivers. And again, I'm not picking on anyone. I'm just simply giving out some real world examples on spatial reasoning. On face value, the argument is this. Listening to Mozart while pregnant can make your child smarter. However, there is no evidence that this is true, at least in children. What is true is that children can remember sounds and voices, and they can react to them. I have 2 podcast episodes, part 1 and 2, on women's health, and I did talk about a study where an unborn child, his heartbeat was monitored, and different voices were played, and the child's heartbeat became elevated only when it heard his mother's voice. This proved that even in the womb, children can remember things. The evidence regarding the Mozart effect is that it enhances spatial reasoning. It could stand true that enhancing spatial reasoning of a developing child can stimulate and strengthen those particular areas of the brain. There is an article published in the official journal of the Japanese Society of Child Neurology. The article is by Kim, Lee, Chang, and others called Influence of Prenatal Noise and Music on the Spatial Memory and Neurogenesis in the Hippocampus of Developing Rats. They exposed some rats to music during their mother's pregnancy and had used a radial arm maze. They found that the rat's offspring exposed to music took less time to navigate a maze than those not exposed to the music. They concluded that music helped to stimulate neuron development in the brain, enhancing the learning ability of the rats. I believe this has the ability to work on humans as well, as there is no evidence for any negative issues associated with listening to music in the womb. The reason I say this is because there is evidence that shows that children exposed to music via the womb would tend to relax quicker and cry less when playing the same type of classical music. In addition, as they get older, children exposed to music in the womb can have an easier time learning different languages. This holds true for reading to your unborn child, as the different sounds can stimulate the brain and facilitate learning. There are also certain foods that are encouraged during the pregnancy that can boost your child's intelligence. These foods include leafy greens like spinach, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and kale. They are a good source of vitamins A and C, folate, iron, and potassium. These are important for brain health and development. Drink lots of organic milk. Try to get the one made from cows without RBST, and it is vital for calcium and is a healthy source of fats as well as carbohydrates. Make sure you have eggs. They are a great source of amino acids, vital to human bodily functions and processes. Also, increase fruit intake of blueberries as they are full of antioxidants. Last but not least, increase your intake of fatty fish such as salmon and tuna. Aside from being great sources of protein, they are also great sources of omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin B6, B12, selenium, and potassium. Increasing intelligence during child development ages. The first age group I will discuss is newborns, which is 0 to 3 months of age. Most couples go out of their way to get their baby's room ready with a great-looking crib, lots of baby clothes and toys. However, the color of the baby's room rarely gets detailed attention. Aside from the traditional blue, pink, or yellow, not much thought goes into the color. That being said, the color of the room can influence intelligence. As an example, color initiates emotion, passion, and feeling. Marketers know this, and the color involved in the advertising is taken heavily into account when the product is marketed to consumers. Most newborns only see shades of gray and white, but they'll be able to see and recognize colors by 3 months old. Vibrant colors can help stimulate neuron development. As babies learn to recognize and remember colors, neurons grow. Whenever you learn something, say, for instance, a language or a particular skill, your brain will create more connections. There's an article by Yang, Kanazawa, Yamaguchi, and Kuriki called Cortical Response to Categorical Color Perception in Infants Investigated by Near-Infrared Spectroscopy. They took 12 pre-linguistic infants as they viewed geometric figures, and when the same figures changed colors from green to blue and vice versa, both sides of the brain showed activity. This is proof that an infant's brain is stimulated by color. Most experts will say stay away from white and pick a vibrant blue, a vibrant yellow, or pink, or red, and even vibrant violet colors. However, green is the optimal color because it creates a relaxing effect and promotes concentration. As far as feeding, this age group, birth through 3 months, should be breastfed, and the child can also be given organic baby formula. As long as mom continues her diet from pregnancy and avoids alcohol and unnecessary medications, your baby will be fine. Other ways to stimulate your child is to make eye contact and talk to them. In addition, it is key to incorporate some baby talk. Reading to your baby is also vital, as the baby already knows your voice and wants to hear it. You can use books with vivid, high contrast colors, which helps to stimulate the brain. Singing to your baby is also a good thing, as it will not only soothe and comfort them, but it will help to stimulate the brain. Using different toys with different sounds is also ideal. You can even mimic the sounds that your child makes. Different pressures and hugs will also help to stimulate your child as well as their muscles. When bathing them, use different textures of sponges and washcloths, which can help to stimulate them as well. The next age group is the infant, which is from 3 to 12 months old. At around 5 to 6 months old, the infant can start to eat fresh food. First, make sure to check with your child's pediatrician. Brain foods for this age group include pureed avocados, which are rich in antioxidants, B vitamin, protein, and omega-3 fatty acids. Pureed carrots, lentils, apple, bananas, kale, oatmeal, and eggs are also great brain food. Encouraging your child to crawl and walk in this age group is vital to brain stimulation. Tummy time is also vital for development, as it helps to strengthen the neck and the back. Cuddling your baby, cycling his legs, as well as using mobiles and rattles are good for brain function and development. Peekaboo, although seemingly simple, is important to play with your child, as it helps them to develop objective permanence. This allows them to grasp the concept that an object exists, although they're not always able to see it. At around 12 months, you expect them to fully utilize building blocks or Legos. They are an essential part of learning, as a child can learn to build things while having fun. Toys that incorporate music are also good, like toy pianos and xylophones. They can also help with neural stimulation. In addition, there are whack-a-mole or pound-a-ball toys, which can help with hand-eye coordination. Continuing to read to them, as well as talking and singing, will also strengthen and build cognition. The next age group is the toddler, which is 1 to 3 years old. Perhaps the most obvious and most important thing, aside from providing a lot of love and care, is to read to them. Make sure you get plenty of children's books. There are even scientific books for children. I recommend these at around 16 or 17 months old. I'm not being paid to endorse this, but I am mentioning it because I am all about providing useful information. There is a book set called Quantum Physics for Babies. You can find it on Amazon, and if your city still has a bookstore, you can find it there, I'm sure. For those of us who have taken college-level physics, we know how difficult those courses can get. Introducing your child early to science will help open their mind and introduce basic concepts involving the world around us. There are even books on astronomy and mathematics. Don't get me wrong, I'm all about making sure a kid has fun and also reads Dr. Seuss books and things of that nature, but I'm mentioning things relevant to the purpose of this podcast. I wanted to take a moment to say thank you for supporting the podcast. The Living Healthy podcast is listed on many platforms, including Anchor, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Bullhorn, and many others. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. And don't forget to check out the Living Healthy podcast channel on YouTube. Also, if you have any questions or would like me to discuss a particular topic, or you'd like to be a guest on the show, please contact me at livinghealthy@gmail.com. At the age of 3, your child most likely will be able to count and recite the alphabet. Encourage your child to play with blocks and to build. Additionally, you can get high contrast cards with the alphabet on them and show them to your child while saying the letter. You can start earlier, around 2 or so, as the earlier they are exposed to this, the easier it will be for him or her in school. I wanted to mention painting. At around 6 or 7 months old, a child is old enough to finger paint. Not only is this a great way for a child to develop their sense and perception of the world around them. Granted, this may be a messy activity, but properly preparing the area and monitoring your child will minimize unnecessary messes. The important thing is that this simple act allows your child to express themselves. Even if it looks as if they're just making a mess, they're expressing themselves while exploring their creativity. Not only that, but it helps them to fine-tune their hand-eye coordination and can aid them when they begin to write later on. Allowing a child to finger paint aids in strengthening and building neural connections as they learn to express themselves in the world around them. So turn on some Mozart or Chopin, grab a plastic tarp, a canvas, some finger paints, and let your kid go to town. The next group is the preschool group, ages 3 to 4. This is a particular age range when your kids will act like they've downed 2 large cans of energy drinks. They will be hyper and ready to explore, run, and play and make noise. Lots of noise. All this is normal, so this is also a great time to get your child into physical activities. Not necessarily to tire them out, but they can express themselves while being productive, and this will allow them to have a taste of disciplines that they can learn from and build on later on in life. Learning skills through physical activity not only benefits the body, but benefits the brain as well. An example would be T-ball. Now you can buy a T-ball set to introduce your child to the concept of baseball and set it up in the backyard or front yard and play with your child. Depending on where you live, there are T-ball leagues for preschoolers, and it will teach them teamwork, all while having fun. Additionally, this activity strengthens the arms, legs, cardiovascular system, and of course, the brain. Other great activities to get your child into at this age are martial arts. Taekwondo and karate are great martial arts for a child. Most classes will have short lessons as to match the attention span of the child's age. The biggest thing is that it will teach children to take turns and how to get along with others. Martial arts will also inspire confidence as they learn balance, coordination, and it will also instill the "I can do it" attitude. Your child will also be happy to come home and impress you with what they've learned in martial arts class. Long term, if you decide to keep your child in these classes, they will benefit from cardiovascular health, flexibility, toning their muscles, and strengthening their bones. Brain foods for preschoolers include eggs, as they're full of vitamin A, B, D, E, leucine, omega-3, and folate. Some kids are picky about what they eat. They can eat eggs either hard-boiled, because that's pretty good, or you can spice things up by making tortillas with eggs. Green onions, spinach, and as well as some salsa. Oatmeal is also good. Try to avoid the instant ones as those are heavily processed. Most kids don't like oatmeal, but if your kid will eat it, encourage them to do so. You can also add some sugar or manuka honey to get your child to eat it. They are a great source of B vitamins, vitamin E, as well as zinc. Fish is another brain-boosting food, known for its omega-3 fatty acid content. Kids may not be keen on eating baked salmon, so you can cut some salmon into small cubes, bread, and fry them. You can give them to your child as a snack food. Just make sure you fry them using organic cold-pressed oils like olive or rapeseed oil. Those are 2 of the healthiest oils to cook with. On a regular basis, you can make your child a tuna sandwich. Most kids love tuna, and it's a great and simple way to get them a dose of omega-3 fatty acids. Dark chocolate is another great source, but as an occasional treat. And this is not the typical Halloween candy or candy you'll see at your local supermarket. I'm talking about 70% dark chocolate. Now this chocolate tends not to be as sweet, but as long as your kid knows it's candy, you'll have no trouble getting them to eat it. It's great for the memory as it contains lots of antioxidants and contains tryptophan, which can boost serotonin levels. This can have a calming effect, which improves concentration. But be warned, it does contain caffeine, and we all are pretty aware that a 3 or 4-year-old does not need a caffeine boost. So give this in moderation. Greek yogurt is also another great brain-boosting food. It's full of vitamins, minerals, protein, and good bacteria. All of this, which is also excellent for the body. You can serve some plain or vanilla organic Greek yogurt with sliced strawberries, apples, or bananas. It's important to try to introduce as much healthy food as possible to your child at a young age, as they will predispose to continue eating healthy into their teens and adulthood. A 3-year-old should be able to count to 20, 30, or more in some cases, as well as being able to recite the alphabet. There are books for 3 and 4-year-olds with very simple spelling and math problems. I would advise that you set aside some time in the day to not only read to your child, but to spend some time with them on these books that have math and spelling problems. You can go online and check for websites that sell this type of material. Your child will be starting kindergarten typically around 5 years old or so it's a great idea to get them started as soon as possible, as school will only be easier for them and less frustrating if they're able to catch on quickly. This leads me into the next age group, which is 5 to 8-year-olds. You may want to reinvest a weekend in some paint to repaint the nursery that's now changing into your child's room. Depending on the color it was painted originally, a shade of purple would be an ideal color, as this color has been proven to stimulate the parts of the brain that are associated with problem solving. As I had mentioned, this will be the age when they start to enter kindergarten. Almost all children will also feel some type of separation anxiety, and up until now, their entire world was their mom and dad. Even though they may have taken part in other activities like t-ball or martial arts or have been in daycare, they're now old enough to really understand being away from mom and dad for an extended period of time. Some anxiety, separation is normal, but by the time your son or daughter makes their first friend, they will settle down and things will be just fine. If you did not get your child started in t-ball or martial arts, there is still time to do so within this age group, as they will get the same benefits that I mentioned earlier. This is also a great age to start football. There are peewee leagues around that will teach kids the sport, and it will help them to get along with others and instill in them that they have to work as a team to accomplish a goal. Aside from the benefits to the brain from simply learning, it's great for physical health. Team sports also build a foundation for following rules and presenting values that children can build on and take with them as they continue to grow. Your kindergartner will have some homework, and aside from the parents making sure that it's been completed, it's important to continue reading to them in conjunction with doing math and spelling problems available from workbooks you can find online and in bookstores. As far as food, you can continue the things that you were giving them at age 3 and 4 to continue to boost their brain health. At age 5, they're ready to have some more greens aside from those at dinner. You can try to get them to eat kale and a banana and a pineapple and just combine it in a smoothie. Kale is a great source of folate, iron, and vitamin K. Bananas are a great source of potassium and B6, and pineapples are a great source of antioxidants, B6, and vitamin C. This is a fantastic smoothie that can improve brain health. At this age, your child will be drawing and painting things like a house and members of the family, which would include the family dog. They'll be coloring in the lines, and it is important to continue to encourage their artistic side. Make sure you have plenty of crayons, coloring books, watercolor books, and paints on hand. Painting and drawing not only helps to explore creativity and embrace expression, it helps them to develop their hand-eye coordination and fine-tune motor skills. In addition, it helps to develop spatial attention or visual spatial attention. This is simply focusing on something in your visual field. Painting or drawing allows your child to do this and is vital for overall brain health and development. Also, painting and drawing strengthen language output. This is done as your son or daughter explains what they created or what they were thinking of when they were creating it. It does mean something to them, as at this age, they're not only having fun, but they're more possessive of their creations as they take more pride in them. As their creations begin to mean something to them, this also increases their attention span as they take their time to produce what they're thinking or produce their interpretation of something in the world. Jigsaw puzzles are a great way to help develop your child's brain and strengthen cognition. Kids love putting together puzzles based on their favorite cartoon or cartoon characters. This is a fantastic way to help your child to think and reason as they put together their puzzle. Just as with painting and drawing, putting together puzzles also helps a child to develop their visual spatial attention. As they age, and as you see how much your child can handle, you can buy different puzzles according to different levels of complexity. There are also different puzzles out there, from alphabet puzzles to 3D geometric puzzles. Musical instruments are another great way to supercharge your child's brain. Among age groups, girls may be better suited to start learning to play musical instruments earlier than their male counterpart. This is seemingly due to the fact that girls are more mature than boys. In some cases, 10 is the ideal age. However, some kids as young as 4 can learn music and learn to play an instrument. You don't have to dish out thousands on a Steinway & Sons piano. If your funds allow you to do this, you can pick up a used piano. However, even some used ones in great condition can run about $3,000. You can instead buy an electric keyboard to at least get your child used to the concept. And there are many other instruments to choose from. I am just mentioning pianos simply because I love them. Before you shell out any serious money on an instrument, make sure your child loves to play it and that they will play it. There are many tutors to choose from based on the instrument, as well as music programs that are available in school. Learning to play a musical instrument is right up there with learning a new language. It builds new connections in the brain, and the synchronous activity helps to strengthen your child's auditory and hand-eye coordination. On the Frontiers in Neuroscience website, there's an article by Mindelarzewska and Trost called How Musical Training Affects Cognitive Development, Rhythm Rewarded, and Other Modulating Variables. They reviewed studies on how learning to play an instrument affects the brain. They stated that the rhythmic synchronization from learning to play can provide benefits outside of music to a developing brain because it involves multiple senses and skills. Next, I will discuss learning during preteen years, which is ages 9 to 12, and learning during teenage years, which is 13 to 17. A great way to build your child's mind and have fun is by having a family game night. After dinner or on a late Sunday afternoon, you can get your family together and play board games. There are a plethora of games including Monopoly, Scrabble, Trouble, chess, and checkers, to name a few. Although these games are not made with the intention of boosting brain health, the simple act of engaging in activities that require thought and calculated decisions help to not only make your child think critically, but it will also sharpen their thinking as well. That being said, in addition to games, you can buy a 1,000-piece puzzle, and on family night, the family can get together and work on the puzzle. It's important to continue to keep your child interested in reading. Even though we live in an electronic age, we have to keep our kids reading. It's a good idea to give your 9 to 12-year-old a book to read on their own and have them write a one-page book report on what the book was about and to list anything that they may have learned. They may not like this, but when they become adults, they will certainly thank you. I remember my mom taking me to the library and getting me a library card. She made sure I was always reading something and always learning. One thing I remember, and I'm not sure if they have them anymore, but it's the Choose Your Own Adventure series. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, there was a series of books with multiple storylines, and you were the main character, and you would be presented with challenges and situations, and you could make choices. And based on those choices, you would turn to a certain page, and your story would continue from there until you're presented with more situations to choose from. And it would continue on until the story ends. I read all kinds of books, but I really love those, and I thank my mom for pushing me to read. Vocabulary is also very important. You can get vocabulary books commensurate to your child's age and have them learn how to spell those new words and how to use them in sentences. There are plenty of books you can buy online, or you can simply open a Word document and create a list of words and have your child study those. This is vital. Think about this when you text. Some phones have the autocomplete function. With some phones, you may be able to turn off autocomplete, and other phones you can't. If you type 2 letters and then tap the word when you see it, you'll never learn how to spell that word. The same goes for your child. Unlike my generation, this generation has cell phones. Although they're good for safety, it would be a good idea to encourage your child to not use the autocomplete feature or to turn it off. Also, as your child ages, you can continue to keep them playing their favorite sports, martial art, or musical instrument. Not only are these activities vital in building the brain, but given your child's passion and dedication to whatever they're into, they can end up getting a scholarship to college. Believe me, with the amount of money it costs for a college education in America, a scholarship would come in handy. I have been a party to some situations where a parent or parents will bring their child to the doctor looking for a nutritionist or for a bariatric surgeon. Some kids are severely overweight for their age, and they're setting themselves up for diabetes and cardiovascular issues down the line. In a nice way, these parents were made aware that their teenager does not have a job and cannot buy the many fast food meals that they're eating. It then sinks in that a role needs to be enforced by the parent. I'm not saying that you need to be mean to your child and force them to eat nothing but string beans and celery every day. Enforcing a role means making more healthy choices available, and that's it. I'm not saying this to blame anyone or to offend anyone. I'm just stating the stark reality. The World Health Organization states that as of the year 2020, 39 million children under the age of 5 are obese. The CDC states that in the United States, that 20% of the age group from 2 years old to 19 years old are obese. That is a significant amount of people. So the proof is in the pudding, no pun intended. That being said, your teenager is actually old enough now to make suggestions on what they want to eat. You are the parent, and they can only eat what you provide, aside from school and their friend's house. Of course, you want to be great parents and provide great healthy food. Their body and brain are still developing, so some healthy food suggestions to aid in development at this age are whole grain bread, whole grain pasta, kale, spinach, broccoli, pumpkin seeds, walnuts, almonds, lentils, salmon, chicken, blueberries, cranberries, and eggs. All of these foods, most of which I've mentioned earlier, are great foods. They're a great source of vitamins, potassium, as well as antioxidants and iron. As your teenagers get older, they will branch out, and rightfully so. They will be aware of their social presence and will be focused on how they look to their friends, and they will have a strong interest in the opposite sex. All this is normal. They will also be very concerned about their social media status. As long as they're not obsessed and believe their social media status is all they have to live for, the interest they show will be healthy. Times have changed and technology has changed. They'll be playing video games with their friends, and they're subject to a lot more distractions than you and I were when we were growing up. The thing is, you still must present your child with opportunities to learn. As they get older, you may want to take them to science fairs, planetariums, science centers, zoos, and museums. You are never too old to learn, and on top of that, you get the blessing of spending more time with your family. You can also introduce your teenager to volunteering so he or she can understand how important it is to help their fellow man. You can volunteer at a local church, youth community center, or even a hospital. Volunteering can benefit your child by learning, and it looks good on their college application and on their resume. Just remind your teenager that the main reason they should volunteer is to help those in need. We're all God's people, and we should all help one another. This is why it's important to get your kids involved in team sports and team activities at a young age. They'll be used to working with others, and it will be easier for them to understand how important it is to help others. Homeschooling your child. I decided to talk about this because a lot of parents are doing it now. It's been happening for decades, but in more recent years, mostly since the coronavirus pandemic, it's a lot more commonplace. There are a number of reasons why a parent or parents choose to homeschool their children. Whatever the reason is, it is an alternative, and since your child will not be in school with others, it's vital to make sure that he or she participates in sports, martial arts, or some type of group activity so those healthy social interactions and relationships can grow. In order to homeschool your child, you have to adhere to your state's rules. Each state has their own guidelines and specific requirements. In some states, you have to file an annual report as well as a curriculum, quarterly reports, and attendance records. Don't worry, each state has organizations on homeschooling that you can join. There are many outreach programs where you can also get the guidance and have questions answered and meet other parents who are homeschooling as well. Homeschooling has many benefits as a parent can really see where their child may have an issue and focus on helping them to learn and completely understand. The child is also learning in a safe and comfortable environment, and they're not subject to the negative things that can happen in schools. Also, research has proven that children that are homeschooled often score much higher on standardized tests than their counterparts who went to school. However, there are also disadvantages to homeschooling, such as cost. The cost for materials will fall solely on the shoulders of the parents. The school experience and the element of daily interactions with friends is not there. The element of working in a group on a project is also not there. This is why I had mentioned it's important to have them involved in some sort of sport or group activity. I'm very objective, so I always look at both sides of the story, and this is why I listed benefits and disadvantages. Now, if homeschooling interests you, I would strongly urge you to consider looking into it and weigh your options and then decide. Also, try to get input from other parents who homeschool their children. I would advise going online and looking for books or watching videos on homeschooling in order to get started. That's going to do it for Season 2, Episode 13 of the Living Healthy Podcast. As always, thank you for your continued support. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. And remember, living healthy creates a better you.